So I'm on LinkedIn and a lady jumps into my comments and explains how candidates can use Boolean searching in order to uncover new opportunity, right? Now, that lady was Gabi Preston-Phypers. And I was really intrigued by this as a new route to opportunity for candidates and people on the job market. So I invited her on the podcast, and I'm so glad I did. It's another example of the power of LinkedIn and making new connections. Because yes, in this episode, you're going to hear all about how candidates can use Boolean, how hiring teams can use Boolean in a more effective way. But there's a lot more to this lady than meets the eye. So Gabi's story and what we share in this podcast is fascinating. At 27, she was living the dream to some extent by being a 27-year-old VP in the front office of a bank. But she decided to pivot. She's done remote work, and now she's set up a number of businesses with her other half, working across the recruitment, sourcing, and Boolean ecosystem. And she's just full of energy. She's got an incredible story to tell about pivoting, to tell about motherhood, and to tell about overcoming your past and overcoming some of the things that hold us back in order to fulfill your potential. So wherever you are on the career cycle at the moment, this is really important listening. And without further ado, here comes Gabi Preston-Phypers on the Executive Career Jump podcast. Let's get to work.
You're listening to the Career Jump podcast. Insights, interviews, and success stories to inspire and give you the edge when you make your next career jump. Hosted by your career concierge, Andrew MacAskill.
Hello, welcome back to the Executive Career Jump podcast. I'm your host and career concierge, Andrew MacAskill. Very excited to have the founder of Tooled-Up Raccoons, Gabi Preston-Phypers, with us today. How's it going, Gabi?
It's good. I'm so excited to be here and be corrupting more people in the world.
Yeah, well, corrupt away. We're very excited to have you here corrupting us. And another connection made via LinkedIn as well. Just goes to show the power of the platform, right?
Yeah, absolutely. People think it's dead, but do you know what? If you find the right people and you've got common interest and common passions in life, any conversation can take you anywhere.
It really can. It really can. So just to frame the conversation for people that aren't yet connected with you, I'm sure everybody will be connected with you after this. But for those of you that aren't, Gabi, tell us a little bit about your journey and the type of work that you get involved with, please.
So my journey has been really unique. So I started my career when I was at university. I did an internship in banking for my sins, for whatever sins they were. And I was in regulatory control. So really intense, very, very geeky, and sitting behind a computer screen and realized that that wasn't a good place for me to sit. I'm much more outgoing, but it didn't stop me in banking. When I graduated, I moved to JP Morgan, and I had this big drive and mission to learn back office, middle office, and front office and get my promotions as quickly as I could. So I left university, joined JP Morgan, started my back office, worked all the way into front office, into sales. I was a relationship manager. I did all sorts of cool stuff. And on the day I got my VP promotion, I walked into my managing director and went, what do I need to get my executive director? And he looked at me and was like, you've only just got your VP, chill your beans. And it was at that point that I actually realized I was in a career that I had set my goals and what I wanted to achieve, but they weren't fulfilling me. Like I wasn't happy. I wasn't running around like a lunatic like I do today. And I wasn't hitting my full potential. So I stopped and pivoted and went, you know what? An opportunity had come up in selling in software with a company that was based in Canada. I'm based in the UK. So I was virtual. And I took on the challenge, did that for a couple of years. And I realized after having my daughter that I was actually like, I've always wanted to do my own thing, right? Some people just aren't destined to be part of an organization. They kind of need to kind of strike out on their own, build their own fortune and run at a million miles an hour in whatever direction that may be. So my husband, after many, many painful years of asking me to join his recruitment business, and I had presentations. I had 4 presentations he did to pitch me why I should work for the company. I went, you know what? I want to be that mum who just goes, I have lived my life to the fullest and I've pushed my boundaries and I've taken myself out of my comfort zone. So I joined the family recruitment business just before lockdown happened. So you can imagine the heart palpitations as all our money went into one business. And I went, where have you all gone? And then actually what transpired from all of that, and this is the end of the journey, I promise, is I found an operational gap within our recruitment business. And me and my husband looked at each other and, well, why don't we build a tech ourselves to support our business? Saw the dividends it was paying within our own business and went, do you know what? We'll take it to the market and let everyone else come and play with us. So Tooled-Up Raccoons was then born. So that's kind of my weird little journey through my career, but it is all stemmed from just owning and being acknowledging of who I am, and where I want to be going, and then taking action to push that boundary.
I love that. And I think you've arrived there really early, right? I think there's a lot of people who kind of have that wake up way too late in their careers. Would you agree?
Yeah, way too late. And I mean, to be fair, there's never a bad point to have it, right? At any age, I was 27 when the mic drop moment happened for me, and I was like, I can't do this anymore in banking. But even if you're 40, 50, and you suddenly have that realization that you're not rocking it, right? You don't jump out of bed happy and smiling, and you don't feel like you can be your true self. You need to make a change, and you can't be scared of that. And my parents, being true parents, absolutely tore their hair out when I was like, I've got a 2-year-old daughter and I'm leaving my stable career and my stable income, or ripping their hair out going, oh God, Gabby, please don't do it. And I was just like, actually do it. You live once and you die once. Live doing what makes you happy, where you can genuinely be you, is my best advice I can give to you, with people who are kind of sitting on that edge and not really knowing.
I love how you've used parenting as almost an enabler to that as well, because I think parenting gets in the way of a lot of people doing what they need to be doing. But actually, I think it's always a good reframe to say, what advice would you give your daughter?
It really is.
Because that's what you should be saying to yourself, right? In the majority of the
every
case.
single day of the week. And that's the thing, is like when I looked at myself in banking and how unhappy it had made me, not because of the people as such, it just really wasn't the place for me. It wasn't where I was meant to grow. And then having my daughter and looking at her, my arms being like, when you're older and you're looking at careers and where you want to go, I want to have led by example, rather than be like, I got stuck in a career that never made mummy happy. And at the end of the day, not only does that give her a bad message if I'd stuck in a job I wasn't happy in, but it also says to her that whatever value she has in herself, she should bury and just do the norm of sticking where the career and the safety is. And I don't want her, and I don't want people around me to ever think like that. Your value is whatever value you put on you, and you should own that.
Awesome. I'm going to be clipping that for YouTube.
You are welcome.
That was absolutely mega. I have more questions on this journey. So do you think you could work for a corporate again, or are you now unemployable?
I think I'm unemployable. But to be fair, I think I was unemployable in the first place.
Yeah.
Like I've always been one of those individuals, and anyone who meets me is always like, you are just such a whirlwind. You come in, you are who you are. You're very much like Marmite, right? And not in a bad way, but in a, this is my energy level. I turn up, I don't drink caffeine. I'm 8 months pregnant now, so I definitely don't drink caffeine. And I'm full of energy, and this is just who I am. And I ask the questions, right? I live in a world of engaging my inner 4-year-old. So this why? Like if we're doing something, it doesn't make sense. Why are we doing it? And I think because of who I am fundamentally, although I managed to get myself into jobs in big organizations, they liked the idea of having someone like me, but I don't think they really wanted someone like me, if that makes sense. So I think I have been technically unemployable for a long, long time, but I ticked a shiny box because I was a woman. I've got dyslexia. I was married by the time I was 21. So I was kind of verging on that family journey. So I ticked a lot of boxes for them, apart from the sitting there quietly doing as I'm told box. So technically, I guess I am unemployable now, even more so.
Yeah, it sounds like it, but that's absolutely fine. And I think you're absolutely right in terms of what they want and what they need. So big companies talk about wanting to hire entrepreneurial people. My pushback is they're not going to be working for you. Like if they're genuinely entrepreneurial, they're not going to be here, are they?
They'll shift. And I think the thing is as well, and I think it's not a bad thing, right? That big corporates have this is what I do, and this is the structure, and this is how everything functions. And we want creativity to a limit. We want people to push boundaries to a limit. Like, I get it, because you can't have your whole organization running around like lunatics wanting to change everything, because you just can't, right? And it's just the reality of huge monsters. But they have to be honest about how far that creativity goes, where the boundaries are, and be clear on that, because that doesn't mean they can't hire entrepreneurs or creative people. But they can't hide behind this guise of, I like people to be unique and thought-provoking, when everyone in the world and every politician who sits within a corporate, and there's enough politics to sink a battleship, knows it's utter trash, which means ultimately it puts more strain on managers trying to manage these big characters who've come in. But it also means the company and the candidate are all already at loggerheads before they begin. It's just stupid. Nobody wins from that dynamic ever.
No, it's a complete lack of alignment, a dysfunctional marriage. It's just not going to happen, is it?
Never going to happen.
Next question, please. You were kind of doing remote work before remote work became a thing then with this Canada business. Tell me about that. How was that experience? What tips would you have for the big swathes of the population that are just about to take their first sort of remote role?
Okay, so you've got to bear in mind that I went from a huge corporate with 1,000 people on the trading floor, like bear in mind there's 40 odd floors in this building, to me sitting in my lounge in my hoodie joggers being like, here's my laptop, now what? The biggest thing you have to be really conscious of is the mental shift in that. Like, people are naturally quite sociable to an extent, like even if it's let's grab a coffee, taking that away from someone and then sitting them on their own at home with no interaction is dangerous, like really, really dangerous. And I think it was one of my biggest personal mental hurdles I needed to get over. So the best thing I did, and I would suggest to anyone, is structure your day where you go out for a coffee, right? Go to a busy place where you actually could have the opportunity to interact with other people. The other thing is making sure that when the meetings are taking place within the main headquarters, wherever they are, if you can't be there physically, like I couldn't keep flying over Toronto once a week for a big corporate meeting, what you do is make sure that those meetings are done at times that make sense for you, because they tend to be quite antisocial, because they're like, well, we're all over here and you're on your own over there, right? And then you swing the other bit in terms of them not actually including you in them, right? Which is a huge, huge variable, because if they're not including you in them, you're even further excluded from the rest of the team. You don't know what's going on. They're not thinking about you. They're not considering you. You need to push that agenda really, really hard and make sure that there are no meetings taking place that don't involve you. It was massive because it got really frustrating.
I bet. I can absolutely see that. Very good guidance, very good guidance. And I love the bit around, if you're extroverted, you kind of get your energy from other people. So going to a coffee shop or to a friend's office or something is a good play, right? That makes perfect sense.
I mean, even if you know someone else who is near you, a friend or a family member who's got their own business and they're working from home on their own, be like, do you know what? Do you want to come and work at my dining table with me today? Like, you take some ownership, because your company can't do everything for you. They can't change the fact you're working remotely, but you can change the environment that makes most sense to you. Like, I've had friends come around for coffee and my husband's like, who's coming around today? And I'm like, this person, because we can bounce ideas and frustrations off each other without just getting lost in it.
100%. No, I love that. Excellent. Totally unrelated, but another question, because I've seen some of your content on this topic and I think it's super interesting. Some of the more viral videos and things you've done have been on the topic of dyslexia, and you brought that up when you were discussing your journey. Tell me about, in terms of working with dyslexia, how that's both helped or hindered you at various points in your career, and what you think people need to know about dyslexia as a topic.
To be fair, the dyslexia piece is really interesting, because I am a firm believer that every two dyslexics aren't the same. We don't all have the same challenges. And I think one of the biggest frustrations I've had throughout my entire, I was young when we found out about my dyslexia, but from the journey of finding out to becoming an adult and going through the workplace, my frustration is the fact that dyslexia doesn't come with like a tattoo that says she's dyslexic. So what people do is they see me and they go, oh, you're really articulate. You can chat about any topic. You're really free flowing, blah, 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 blah. Assumptions have been made, right? And the problem is then when you try and shift those assumptions and go, no, look, here's my day-to-day challenge. Like, writing an email on a good day will take me 10 minutes, maybe less, depending on what the content is. On a bad day, I could spend hours on an email editing and tweaking, and that has a consequence both in my corporate career and my more entrepreneurial career. There are consequences, and I think the great thing is about kind of running my own business is if I'm having those challenges, I can look at my husband and go, I'm really struggling, can you help me write this? Like, this is what I want to say, and I'll verbalize what I want to say and he'll write it for me. And to be fair, I tried to do that in my corporate space as well. And they kind of looked at me like I was a bit of a nutter. And they were like, well, this isn't efficient for us. And if you want to learn things and you don't learn the same way as everyone else, like corporate training, right? Corporate training is one size fits all. And you sit there and go, I'm circling a square peg, like circling a square hole here. Like, I'm never going to get this. Could you teach it this way? And they're like, no. And you're sitting there going, again, you want me because I'm dyslexic and I tick your box, but you don't have the ability to understand me, the desire to understand me, or even the ability to just support me day to day when I have those ebbs and flows in dyslexia. But I was always very noisy about it. in terms of being like, I need some help. And when I applied for my jobs, I was like, I've got dyslexia. No questions asked, no embarrassment, no shame, because I genuinely don't think any disability, whether it's physical, mental, whatever it is, should be something a candidate hides from their employee or employer. Be honest, be transparent, and then hope those communication channels stay open so you can excel and grow. But if you're not honest up front, and even during interview, right, it's a great moment to be like, oh, by the way, I'm dyslexic. See their response. Their response will tell you whether they're going to play with you in the sandpit or whether you're going to come in because you fit the bill for box ticking, and they're just going to go, I don't know what to do with you. Right? Test them.
There's a billion people in the world with disabilities now, so there's absolutely no shame in it at all. I'm 100% with you on that. And I also like the idea of just disclosing all this stuff, because I think it's right to start from a point of trust. And as you say, there's a load of insights around how people react to it and things you can assess as a candidate. But I just think you should start from a point of trust and be unapologetically you. So I love that message.
Absolutely. Never apologize for being you.
Never, ever. And for every challenge, there's an upside, right? There's always duality to these things, as we know. There's
every single day.
Exactly. So good, really good message. Hey, everybody. Sorry to interrupt the podcast, but I wanted to tell you very quickly about how Executive Career Jump can help end your career misery. So when you hit our website, there's 3 different ways that our digital resources can help you. For a start, if you're looking to jump in to a new role, we've got the premier online job search course that you're going to find anywhere. There's a number of different memberships to help you understand what you want and how to go and get it in this current environment. So we're here to help you if you want a new career. We've also got a section if you want to jump up in your career. And so this is all about our online leadership hub, which is a platform full of content, includes 2 meetups per quarter and a whole thriving community of leaders trying to become the best leaders they can be. Go and check that out too. And the third area in our website and the other digital course that might help you is our Business Launcher course. So we've created the Business Launcher program that we wish we had when we were setting up on their own. So if you've decided to jump off of the employment stream and start up on your own, make sure you head over and check that out too. You can find all of these resources, a bunch of free content, links to previous podcasts and more at execcareerjump.com. That's EXEC careerjump.com. Now, back to the pod. So we'll switch lanes a little bit then. Let's get on to sourcing, to Boolean, to searching, to all the stuff that
sexy stuff.
Oh, it's so sexy. Yeah. So all the sexy stuff that Tooled-Up Raccoons might get up to. First and foremost, can we just go through a little bit of a translation service? So what does Boolean mean to people that haven't
never heard it before? Do you know what? Don't do the glazed eyes on me. That's all I'm going to say, right? As soon as I say Boolean to people, they go, oh, it sounds really horrible. And if you Google Boolean, it doesn't help because it starts talking about maths and gets really overcomplicated. So the best way I can really simplify this is actually use an example. And it's probably my dyslexia means I want to use an example. But every single day, every single human being in the entire world uses Boolean. Everyone. So I'm pretty sure everyone who's listening to this has been out for dinner, right? And you sit down at the dinner table and you're handed a menu and it goes, do you want a starter, a main and a dessert? And instantly your brain is going, oh, actually, I only want a starter and a dessert. Well, that's where my brain goes, but I'm 8 months pregnant, so everything's about dessert at the minute. And then you go, okay, if I'm only going to do a starter and a dessert, well, what do I want for my starter? Do I want breads? Do I want a salad? Blah, 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 blah. And you start going through this process of what do you want from a situation and what you don't want. Like, do you want ketchup or mayonnaise with your pizza or burger, right? So these processes, these thought processes of what do I want, what don't I want, and what will I tolerate is basically a sequence of activities going through your head. And recruiters and salespeople use those to create a word sequence. They literally just write it down into ors, ands, or nots, put it in a little bracket and go on internet, go search and find me people that fit the requirements of what I'm looking for. Or in a dinner example, it'd be like putting your order in with a menu, with the maitre d' or whoever and going, go order me this. But by the way, don't come back with mayonnaise because I'm going to cry if you do. Does that kind of help bring it to reality?
Filtering.
Yeah, it's advanced. I would say it goes further than filtering. So the challenge you have with filtering is they're very generic, right? Very, very broad. It captures so many different criteria depending on the platform you're using to filter. When you actually dig deep and start writing these strings yourself, really, really simple, you start going much deeper into what you will tolerate versus what you won't, versus what you absolutely want to exclude, which many filters don't let you get to that level of granularity.
Okay, this is interesting. Let's build on this then. So a lot of our listeners might be people who are in transition, right? They're looking to find new opportunities, and a lot of them complain that they can't find the roles that they're looking to apply for. It's a very frustrating situation, as you know. So imagine that I'm a sales director in the south of England looking for a role within maybe FMCG or technology or something like that. Yep. What kind of techniques, Boolean techniques, could I be using to uncover more targeted opportunities?
So what you could do is you take sales director as your first one, right? Because that's your job title. Let's start with the beginning bit. So you're a sales director. You may also know that within your field, a sales director may just be called a director in a job advert or in a job description. You may be called a VP of something for some companies, right? Because director to vice president translation can shift. So what you need to do is start looking at the different title combinations that could apply for the role you want, or the ones you'll accept. So some people are a bit like, you know what, I don't care if it doesn't say director, I'll take a step down. Some people are like, I want to take a step up, and therefore I want to shift my job titles up a level rather than what I've done. I want to go where I want to go. So what you do is collect all those combinations. So you'd have the word sales director in speech marks, because if it's two separate words, you have to have them in speech marks so the system knows that you're looking at them as a group. So sales director, you could then have or director, or VP, or vice president. You're starting to see where these combinations are coming from, and you put them in a closed bracket. So open your bracket, start your combination of titles, close your bracket. Merry Christmas, you've just finished your first Boolean string in title. Then what you do is you can then go to not, right? Let's go to the other end of the job titles that you don't want to be included in your search. So you don't want to be an analyst or an associate or wherever the title may be. But again, same sequence, open your bracket, put the titles you don't want to be coming up in the job hunt, close your bracket. There you go. You've got a little bundle there of titles you do and don't want to be seeing from any job ads, right? Because if you go on LinkedIn today and type in a search for, I don't know, a role you're looking for, if you can start with your titles, all of a sudden you're only going to see the titles you want for the roles that are applicable to you. And then you can start digging into even doing Boolean strings for companies you want to work for, or even companies you don't want to work for. So exactly the same process we've just done with the keywords. Pick the company names of companies that you're like, do you know what, if I could like have my absolute dream job, right? Start with the dream job and then scale back. These are the companies I want, and these are the companies I definitely don't want to see come up on these lists. Same sequence, open your brackets. What do you want? Or close your brackets. Merry Christmas, you've just done a Boolean string on exactly what you want. And you can take that search from your LinkedIn. You can put it into job boards or CV libraries or anywhere you're hunting. You can put it in, and it's going to bring you up the job descriptions that are applicable for what you are looking for.
Love it. And can we plonk that straight into Google as well, potentially?
So Google is subtly different, and this is where the pain comes. So you have a thing called X-ray searching that we will eventually get onto solving for candidates. Right now we're doing the Boolean piece because most people are hanging out on your LinkedIn kind of profiles and your job boards. Google, you can do it, but it's X-ray searching. You use less titles, so it uses the principle less is more. We've never particularly found success in X-ray searching personally. And I think with the variances, it is slightly harder to refine your search, because what we're trying to do is help make candidate searches quicker rather than more complex. You don't want to be searching through more stuff, because otherwise you might as well carried on doing what you were doing a minute ago in filtering land, right? But you can do it if you want to have to look more into X-ray search.
Okay. Oh, I don't think it's necessary. And also, a lot of the search result will be paid for, right? So it won't necessarily be the best match that will come up in Google. It will be whoever's paid to get the best position.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10. Yeah, sadly, that is the sad reality, where I guess if you're using, I guess I say LinkedIn because I don't even know what the percentage is anymore of recruiters that hang out on LinkedIn. But if they're there, that means they're posting jobs there, whether it's an in-house company or an in-house kind of squad that are posting it, or it's an agency posting it. The jobs will be there predominantly. Start in a happy place that makes it easy for you to search and manage. My only other tip is, if you're on LinkedIn, don't apply for a job on LinkedIn through LinkedIn. apply through a website if you can, or through a recruiter, purely because I remember in banking when I was applying for a job through the LinkedIn job spots, and I never heard back ever, where I was like, actually, if I follow the chain back, I can find the recruiter who's hiring for it, then work with the recruiter to then get me in.
Or find the line manager.
Exactly.
Normally in the job title, it will say, reporting to the COO of Europe.
Exactly. You go find them.
Just type COO of Europe, filter by whoever, Morgan Stanley, and then hit them up direct, right?
Exactly.
Far better hit rate.
Exactly.
Good. Very interesting. So what, in terms of your Tooled-Up Raccoon product then, what kind of tools and powers do you give your raccoons to go out and source better? How does your product work?
So our product, so just to give you a bit of a history on this product, it is literally, when I joined the family recruitment business, I came in and looked at our operational inefficiency on day one, because I was like, we're finding candidates, but it's taking us too long. It's very painful. And then we went out to market to look for a tech solution, and they were very expensive and very overcomplicated. So I was like, I'm not paying for it. Very Gabi approach to life. Looked at my husband and went, we're building our own tech. Yay! And he went, oh my God, what are we doing? Deep breaths. But the technology really came about in terms of, we wanted to create a central library to begin with. That was day dot's vision. Because when recruiters and in-house recruitment teams are using Boolean, they tend to store it in Google Sheets, they'll store it in little sticky notes. It's literally so disorganized and it's all over the place. So you kind of create it once, you never really go back to use it again, and you never go and enrich it as you go through your search. It just lives somewhere over there in the land of nowhere. So we created a tool, and it's a Chrome extension to begin with, where you could store every single Boolean string that you've ever created. So it's literally at the tips of your fingers. If you're on LinkedIn, or you're on a job board or a CV library, or even your own internal database, you and your team could all access this library. And you'd have the ability to share your strings and collaborate on your strings. So you're all working together to really, really hone and refine how you're hunting, rather than just broad spattering to whoever will hit you of, nobody engages me. It's like, well, you've messaged 500 people, of which 10 were relevant and the rest were just cannon fodder because you weren't focusing. And candidates aren't stupid. They can see this. So we created this tool, and we built in things like error detection, which has been absolutely mind-blowing. So when you're building a Boolean string, if you miss a quotation or an operator or a bracket, your string can completely break, and therefore you can't really proceed. You're just sitting there going, can I not find this unicorn because they don't exist, or because I've messed up? So we have error detection built in. Like I said, we've got the sharing, we've got the collaborating, we've got the ability to break down Boolean strings. So for the really, really geeky Boolean users, these strings can get incredibly long when you're trying to refine your search for the ultimate candidate you're trying to find. And looking at that and processing it and absorbing the information can be a bit mind-blowing. So we've created a deconstruct button. Deconstructs the whole thing so you can see it and you can edit it. And also on any single web page, as long as you're on Chrome, you can go through someone's profile and go, do you know what? I didn't think of that title combination or that company or whatever it may be. And you can highlight it, right click, and add it to any of your existing strings or create a new string. So it's constantly evolving for you to get better and better. And as we said before when we started, like, this was built for recruiters originally, but it's now helping salespeople do business development. It's helping candidates starting to own their own job hunt, because as they're finding job descriptions, they are like, I would love to do that in my job. They're highlighting words, adding it into their strings, and then refreshing their search. So putting them back in absolute control of what they're finding and where they're going. So it does so many cool things.
I love the relevance. That's what I love about it, because you waste so much time looking at irrelevant stuff. Does it spell check when you said about error detection? Like, because that was always the problem with me.
So it will show you spelling mistakes. So a bit like Grammarly does, it's got like a little wiggle underneath that goes, you made a spelling mistake. But we encourage you to keep them. So we encourage you to have the right spelling and the wrong spelling. And the reason I'm saying this is, I had a big debate with someone on LinkedIn about this. Actually, it was on one of my posts. And they were like, no, if they can't spell chief right or executive right, I don't want to hire them, right? And that's like red rag to a bull for a dyslexic. I was like, you absolute moron. Let's dance. But to me, when we've done searching for our own recruitment business, and we've included spelling mistakes, only by accident, because we found people and we're like, actually add that in because they spelt it wrong. There might be other people. It is amazing how many candidates make tiny spelling mistakes. And that's okay. They're human. It's absolutely fine. But by adding it into our Boolean search, we were finding these hidden gems of talent that no one else was finding because they assumed absolute 100% perfection on spelling.
Absolutely love it. Isn't that interesting? And by the way, anybody who's listening, if you see somebody do a post on LinkedIn that's got a spelling error in it, feel free to message them privately from a point of care to let them know, hey, quick heads up, I spotted a typo in line 2. Don't put a sarky comment on it.
Please. Thank you. Thank you. There was one post I saw a couple of months ago, and it was literally this rampage of people going, I hate people who write there and there wrong. And literally had about 200 comments of people chiming in in effect, bullying anyone who has a learning disability or has ever done a typo. And of course, Gabi, being Gabi, jumped in the middle and went, can I just remind you all that we're all human? And actually, people who are making these mistakes are not necessarily writing them intentionally. So you'll see, for example, on the email exchange we've had, at the bottom of my email, I have proud dyslexic at the bottom. So anyone who gets an email from me who sees a typo will hopefully go, oh, look, she's got dyslexia. Okay, cool. I mean, they shouldn't care anyway, but it is just a stop being mean to other human beings. It's unnecessary. It's completely inappropriate. And it's never intentional. Never intentional.
And what percentage of millionaires are dyslexic? Like a large chunk, right? So by ruling out somebody who makes an honest mistake based on a learning disability, you're missing out on so much potential creative commercial talent, aren't you?
It's mad. It's so short-sighted, and it scares me how in a world that we live in today that people are still so short-sighted about it. So short, but it's irrelevant. It's like, okay, I mean, I've written, embarrassingly, I wrote an email to a very senior hedge fund owner using the word bear. So instead of saying like bear with me, I used the word bear as in naked bear.
Right.
That
interesting.
I mean, I obviously had read that email 1,000 times and was like very convinced I'd had this right. Sent out the email and the guy messaged back, good as gold, knows who I am, and had a bit of a laugh. And my MD looked at me and went, oh, Gabi, really? And I went, it's fine. I was like, he'll take it in what it was meant. And 9 times out of 10 people do. I just wish it would be 10 times out of 10. Everyone just goes, okay, it was a typo, but I know what you were saying. And actually, I think these, like, to be fair as well, running my own companies, when it comes to communication, I'm much more of a video girl because I struggle with my spelling. So actually, I've emailed some really senior people at recruitment agencies about Tooled-Up Raccoons, and I haven't sent them an email. I've sent them a video being like, hi, I'm Gabi. This is what I do. And they absolutely love it. There is no harm, no foul. I'll jump on a video call before I'll have a phone call with someone because I like the visual cues. But people just need to accept who we are as individuals. And if people make mistakes, just be there to support them. Don't drag them down. It's just, they're already kicking themselves for doing it. They don't need your help anymore.
100% right. And play to your strengths was a key message in amongst all of that. I think whether you're job hunting, whether you're recruiting, whether you're prospecting, whatever it might be, if you know that video is your game and you're better with video than just double down, right? Just play to your strengths. I think working on weaknesses is an overrated activity. I think it's a waste of time, right?
I hate it. There's a particular book I wrote that actually really plays that. It's the inner game of golf, inner game of tennis, and there's an inner game of golf as well. I don't play either of those sports because I have the hand-eye coordination of, let's not even go there on that one. But what was really, really interesting about both of those books and why it's relevant to this discussion is instead of having someone sit in front of you and you go, oh, but you didn't do this right, or you didn't do this right, or you didn't do this, what happens is you absorb that and you become very negative. Where when someone says to you, do you know what, you did this really, really well. If you start saying that and getting them to focus on what they did really, really well, what happens is they focus more on that. They get stronger and stronger in that area. And weirdly enough, the bits that they were struggling with vanish because they're actually being compensated by the positives they're doing. So it's not that you're ignoring the things they're challenged by, but you're just going, actually, just keep focusing this way. And you'll get better and better. And it literally was, I read that book on holiday and I was like, why am I reading this? I don't play tennis or golf. But from a mental mind shift in terms of how I treat myself and I talk to myself and how I treat other people and talk to other people to encourage them, absolute golden book to read.
Love that. Really good recommendation. I want to switch lanes completely now and talk about business ownership.
Go for it.
So you work with your husband running your business, correct?
Yes.
What a decision. Zoe and I are in the same position as well, as you know. First of all, what are the pros and cons of business ownership, do you think? Like, give us an honest appraisal. And also, how do you try and get boundaries in your life so that it doesn't just become all encompassing and, you know, your marriage doesn't just become the business? Tell me about that.
Okay. So to be fair, moving into running a business with my husband was a massive, massive step. Bearing in mind, he'd already started Oscar Harrington kind of 7 years prior to me joining. He was already the don of his business. He knew what he was doing, and he was the recruiter by nature, right? He knew it. Like, you cut him open and he bled recruitment. I came in and I bled banking. I was like, oh, how's this going to play? And the honest answer, and he won't mind me saying this, when we agreed to transition and me to come into the business, he sat there and went, I'm very, very good at doing the recruitment. He's like, I can do this with my eyes shut, love doing it, blah, 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 but I hate running a business. And I went, well, I like managing people. I like looking at operational inefficiencies. So my first piece of advice really is sit down and have that very blunt conversation. If you're going to go into business together, know the lanes that you want to sit in. And especially if they've already been running the business ahead of you joining, because it's super easy. And especially at my kind of energy level, I kind of come in and I'm like, let's do this. And I just run at 1,000,000 miles an hour because that's the mentality me and Mitch both have. But you have to be respectful and mindful by the fact that he's already been there. He's already been doing all this stuff. So actually it's coming in with the clear boundaries kind of helped us bed in. Did it mean it was perfect? Absolutely not. There are moments where I literally looked at him and went, if you do not delegate this item to me, I'm going to throw something at you. Like, probably like a stress ball or something soft to begin with, and we'll scale up from there. But it is just keep talking to each other. If you can see someone's getting frustrated, like you would with a normal employee or a staff manager to staff in a relationship, keep talking to each other. I think the other challenge we had is our approach to doing things. Although we've been married 11 years this year, been together 17 years, we know each other's strengths and weaknesses, right? We do know each other's strengths and weaknesses, which is definitely a pro, right? For anyone who says it's not is a liar, because you can look at each other and you know what the other person's thinking before it even comes out their mouth. Dangerous sometimes, but in business, really, really helpful, because you look at them and you go, I know you're thinking and I know you need some help. Right, let's reshuffle this. Let's do this. Let's move these pieces. So embrace that piece of it. And I think another challenge that really existed was, like you said, dividing the world between work and personal life is the hardest thing to do in the entire universe. Bear in mind, I have we have a 2-year-old daughter as well. Like I said, I'm 8 months pregnant again now. We've done a whole remove. We've got Oscar Harrington. We've launched the tech company. There are so many pieces moving where we often forget to just stop and just be the married couple. Like, you're like, when was the last time you went on a date night? Fill in the gap. But what we did was, when we started seeing it creep too far, where you're sitting at the dinner table and you're talking about Oscar Harrington or Tooled-Up Raccoons, and you're like, this isn't okay. So actually what we did is almost used Phoebe as a bit of a buffer, which is great. So whenever Phoebe is around, we're not allowed to talk shop to each other. Unless it's absolutely life-threatening critical, then we can have that conversation. We also have a bit of a rule that if one of us is like, do you know what, I'm just flagging today, I can't keep going, instead of being like buckle down and just keep smashing your head against the brick wall, one of us will be like, do you fancy going to the farm for an hour? And we'll all bundle up as a family, we'll grab feeds and we'll all go off to the farm, and we can't talk shop, not allowed to talk shop at all. We just focus. But we're very, very clear on those times where it's like, it's okay to talk. And then there's times like this week, for example, is really manic because we're doing new development. So recruitment's busy, development is busy. And we've gone, do you know what, this week, it's okay to work longer hours and it's okay to bleed conversations if we need to. But next week, the rules are back in play where it's, you can talk to me during these hours, but anything outside of that is not a no-go. So you have to be quite strict. It's hard.
You do, yeah. Particularly if you're not a naturally structured person, which I'm not. Like, putting in those boundaries takes a bit of time, doesn't it? In terms of getting a bit more structured around how you're doing. But no, I like that. And I think the beauty of it, it's amazing creating something with your partner. Like, I love that feeling of it. And the trust is there. And what you were alluding to earlier, like, you have zero concerns about trust when you're in business with the person you're married to, because if you didn't trust each other, then that's a bigger problem, right? Like, so
I think that's a more fundamental issue that we have to deal with.
Correct. So I think from a business point of view, it's fantastic to have zero trust issues in terms of the people running the business, because in businesses where in general, there's a lot of underlying politics, and that all comes from lack of trust and lack of transparency. So I love that. One of the things that I think is difficult, particularly for the person coming into the business, which was you on this occasion, and not so much in this business, but when I was MD of a previous business, Zoe came in, was how she was viewed by the rest of the team. And she was somebody that really enjoys having close relationships with colleagues and being part of a culture, etc. But she was always the MD's other half who'd come in. And so it just took longer than usual for her to establish her credibility, establish trust, make it clear there was boundaries between the relationship she had with them and what we were talking about and all of that kind of thing. But it's a tricky transition, isn't it, in terms of the people element?
It is really hard. And especially, I mean, I did find it difficult because I came from such a cutthroat environment, and I'll call it what it is. That part of the reason I left was because of how they treated each other. But obviously when you've been there so long, it starts embedding in you, right? There's nothing you can do. And I hold my hands up, and it wasn't a pretty phase of my life. That's for sure. Hence part of the reason why I left, right? Because it was making me into an ugly version of myself that I didn't like and I didn't want to be. But when I transitioned into that business, it was that, oh, you're the founder's wife. So how do we treat you? How does that dynamic play out? Like, what do you expect? What are you throwing your weight around because you can, or is that who you are? So it was kind of like, actually, not only was I trying to delayer some of the negativity that had been kind of embedded within me because of the environment I was in, but also just trying to stand there in front of them and be like, no, when I say something, it's not because I'm the founder's wife, it's because it needs to happen. And I was very clear on my identity when I walked into the business. I was very clear on my boundaries when I walked into the business, and I was very clear on my role. So the roles that Mitch and I had delineated for each other's own sanity, then conveying that to the team meant that they knew where they stood. And that's kind of how we tried to get over that hurdle. But it's a massive hurdle. And I mean, I still get it today, which is bizarre with the tech company. I get people who look at me, and I hate to say it because I'm a woman, and it is, and they look at me and go, oh, okay, so you just work for the founder, right? The founder's Mitch. And I sit there very calmly and go, no, it's both of our business. We are in this together. But I think there's just that mentality, unfortunately, around it. But one of the things I have seen is sometimes people are nervous about joining husband and wife's teams because they're just like, no matter what happens in business, you will always side with each other. And I see where that fear comes from, because some people can't separate personal from business. And there has been plenty of Barneys we've had behind closed doors where we have disagreed massively on the treatment of how we solve something. But as you would of any other normal employee, you treat them as if you're the founder, you're a co-founder, this is your role, these are the positions we're in, and everyone is treated fairly. And if Mitch has done something stupid, he'll be called out on it. If I've done something stupid, I'll be called out on it. And that, I don't think people should fear husband and wife teams. I think they should actually embrace them more, because actually what you'll find is we're a lot more family dynamic. Like we've had staff before who've had issues, and we've been like, cool, go, just go. I don't want to hear from you. Go away. And they're like, well, hang on a minute. What's happening? And it's like, well, you're in a family business. We have a 2.5-year-old. We understand that things can blow up last minute. Even if you don't have kids, life is busy. But when you're in a family run business, I think we're more appreciative of that dynamic of family and things that you can't control and you can't foresee, that actually just make them a really nice environment to work with, because you always know you can put your hand up and go, I'm having a really tough time, blah, 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 blah. Could I have? Or could I ask? And it's there's that mutual respect that exists to trust someone to go have that extra time and come back when you're ready.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Well, I don't know what the old version of Gabi was like, but I like this version.
Not someone you didn't want.
Yeah, well, I was probably just as bad at the time. But, it's a journey and that's all good. But I like this version. I love the energy that you're bringing to the conversation. I like some of the innovation you bring to the space as well. So just from us, thanks so much for coming on, sharing your insights. Good luck for the growing family and the growing businesses. It's an exciting time for you.
I'm going to have to work out maternity leave now.
I know, yeah.
Whatever the hell that looks like.
Yeah, well, whatever you decide the policy is for yourself, I guess. But for anybody listening who hasn't come across your content before, hasn't come across your businesses before, what's the best way for them to reach out or to connect with you, Gabi?
come and grab me on LinkedIn. I am an acceptor of every connection. I live a world of you have my absolute respect and engagement until you lose it. So if you behave like a moron, you'll be gone. If you're not, which I assume you're probably not, just connect with me on LinkedIn and we can chat about absolutely anything that we've covered on here or you see in my topics. Just grab me, come and find me. There's only 2 of us out there with this surname, so you'll definitely find me.
And are you related to the other Preston-Phypers or not?
Only by marriage. So Mitch was the Phypers, I was the Preston, and we decided in true Gabi and Mitch style to kind of go against the odds of everyone's thinking and combine surnames. So there is literally, well, there's 3 of us technically in the world. There's Mitch, there's Phoebe, my daughter, and me.
I love that. So very easy to find Gabi, and we'll put links into the episode, but recommend that you follow Gabi. She's a lady on a mission, sharing some interesting content. So go and get stuck in with the raccoon revolution, and we'll catch you all very soon. Thanks, Gabi.
Perfect. Thanks, Andrew.
You've been listening to the Career Jump podcast with Andrew MacAskill. For more resources and information, just head over to the Career Jump website at www.execcareerjump.com to supercharge your job search and start making moves. Let's get to work.